Hello and welcome back to Crafted by Corie. If you're new, I'm Corie. Welcome to my channel, and if you are returning, thank you as always. You are so appreciated. I have a compilation video today for all of my spring DIYs, so let's go ahead and get on into the crafting.
DIY number one.
All right, this is a trash to treasure somewhat. That box used to have wine in it a long, long time ago. It's been in my stash for years and years, and I'm finally excited to be doing something with it. I also showed you I've got some more fairy lights that I've set to the side, and I have three Dollar Tree vases. I've got my antique wax by Waverly here that I've pulled out along with a baby wipe, and I'm going to go ahead and apply this all over my little wood box. And I love the way that the grain comes out on this. I think it's so super pretty. And a little bit of this wax goes a long way. So just getting a little bit on my baby wipe. I'm really just using what's on the lid of the antique wax container. And once it's all done, I set it aside to dry, and I'm going to work on getting this cleaned up. So I've got my rubbing alcohol, and these have just been sitting in my stash for a while, so I wanted to make sure that they were nice and clean. I'm going to be dropping them into my box. And now I've got all of this extra greenery that I've been saving. So when I pull my picks apart, I also had that moss. I ended up not using it. I thought I was going to use it at first, but I didn't, so you can disregard that. But whenever I pull my picks apart, I tend to end up with a lot of extra greenery, and I save it. And now I'm going to be using a whole bunch of it. And I am using this to not only make it pretty, but it's also serving to secure my vases in place without glue so that they don't clank together. Now I've got these blue and white hydrangeas that I think are absolutely beautiful, and I'm just going to cut them all apart. And I started to put it in a little bundle. I thought I was going to use wire, and I was like, no, that's not going to work. So I went to my stash, grabbed these little styrofoam balls, and I'm going to stick these all into the balls, but realized that I had too much of a stem on there since I'm not going to be bundling them, and I'm going to be using the styrofoam instead. So I cut these down. I had maybe about a half an inch left of my little stems. Tucking these in all over the top half of the little ball, and I'm alternating colors with the blue and white and just getting it to a place that looks pretty to me, and I can drop it right on top of my vase, and these are like little floating flower balls. I think this is so fun. So now I am going to go ahead and attach my, well, I'm going to unravel my fairy lights, tuck them down inside the vase here, and then I'm going to be securing it to the bottom of the styrofoam ball. Now I decided that the lights were sitting a little too low, so I'm going to fill the bottom with some more greenery. And then I'll go ahead and tuck my lights back in. Now, if I had to do this over again, I would have cut my styrofoam balls in half and made sure that the bottom part was the flat part so that I could more easily adhere my little battery packs to the styrofoam balls. It would have been a little bit easier. It all worked out, but again, if I had to do it again, if I had it to do again, that's what I would have done. So I'm just going to go through and do the same thing with the other two, getting them all set, dropping the greenery in, dropping in my fairy lights. And these are wired, and so they kind of take shape, if you will, and I'm just kind of bunching them up with no rhyme or reason. It's all very random. You'll notice I am applying the glue to the side that does not have the screws on it. That's because if ever we need to change out the batteries, we want to be able to access them. So that's why I'm doing it that way. And here is the third one, just getting that applied, and we are going to be all set. I am dropping that in, fluffing it up, and we are all done. Let me know what you think.
DIY number 2.
All right, I have a little bicycle wreath form, I'm going to call it for lack of a better term. I picked this up at Dollar Tree. I also have that sisal twine that I'd gotten at the Home Depot quite some time ago. And I am going to be taking my twine and wrapping this entire bicycle wheel, the spokes and everything individually. And I was actually inspired, and I was looking for my inspiration picture and couldn't figure out where it might be. And I realized just before doing this voiceover that it was actually my sweet subscriber Rose who shared her project last week that inspired me to create this. So thank you for the inspiration, Rose. But as you can see, I am just taking my twine and wrapping and wrapping and wrapping. Y'all, this took a really long time. I mean, longer than I had expected it to take. It probably took me a couple of hours to get this whole thing wrapped, so not putting you through all of that. But as you can see, I've got a bunch of loose ends at the top. Not to worry. Once I had it all wrapped, I'm just going to go around one more time on the outer rim, and I'm going to wrap in all of those loose ends so they will all be completely hidden. And once I get to the end, I'll just go ahead and I'll tie it off with that last loose end. I'll be able to trim it really close and just hit it with some hot glue to make sure that it doesn't come undone. And then I went ahead and I worked on the center to cover that up. I'm just going in between the spokes and wrapping it around and around until everything there was covered as well and no loose ends. Hitting that with some hot glue, and then I'll be able to trim that close and we will be all done with that. Now I'm using my little lighter to burn off all of those little strings, and it actually gave it kind of a cool aged look and effect too, because I really hit it hard with the flame. If you do that, just be careful, right? Make sure you have water nearby. But this is a bouquet, if you want to say, that I had picked up from Walmart not too long ago, and I splurged a little bit on it. I think it was like $7 and change, if I'm not mistaken, which is more than what I normally spend, but I thought it was so pretty and it was going to be perfect for this. So of course I'm cutting it all apart the way I normally do. And once I had all of my pieces pulled apart, I went ahead and started fashioning it together the way that I wanted it to look. I was pairing up the buds, the blooms, with some of the greenery because I wanted to have that breaking it up a little bit. And then I went ahead and got out a piece of parchment paper to stick under here. I started pulling away the all of the blooms. I wanted to maintain my two anchor pieces, so the little hydrangea at the top and the bottom. I wanted to make sure that I kept those in the same spots so that I had the same area to fill in between. Hopefully that makes sense the way I'm trying to explain. I just wanted to make sure I didn't have big gaps with all of my florals. So here I'm realizing, you know, I need to put that parchment paper down underneath here. And the reason I use the parchment paper is that the hot glue doesn't stick to it. It peels right up off of the hot glue. So it's great to have under anything you're working with hot glue on, because you can just lift it right up off of there and you don't end up with, you know, pieces of paper stuck to the back of your project. So then I'm just going to come in and secure each of the other pieces, working top and bottom simultaneously. So coming in one piece at the top, one at the bottom. Now I'm going to go ahead and at first I thought I was going to attach the greenery to my bicycle wheel and then attach the flower in. And then I decided, you know, it would really make a lot more sense or make it easier for me to attach the greenery directly to the blooms and then attach that whole thing to the little wheel. So that was what I ended up doing. So I went ahead and got all of my greenery attached to my blooms. When that was all good to go, I proceeded to secure them to the little bicycle wheel. So actually, I did decide I was going to go in and just make sure I knew where I wanted everything again, now that I had started securing the top and bottom pieces down. And once I was satisfied with that, I went ahead and added the hot glue in. So just one piece at a time, taking my time. And once I had all of that secure, oh, I've still got a little bit more to do. And I just do this so that it looks pretty to my eye, right? But once I had it all secure, I flipped it over, made sure everything was nice and attached. I added a little more hot glue where I thought it might need some. And then I was looking at it, and that little piece down the bottom, it was just sticking out funny, and I wanted it to continue to curve around. So I put a teeny tiny drop of glue there for that. Now, I thought I wanted to use this really pretty satin ribbon for the hanger, and I was going to put a bow at the top and all of that. So I got it on there, and I did not like it. It's a very pretty color and a very pretty bow, but I did not feel like it went with this piece. The piece is a little bit too rustic, and I felt like the bow was it was too satin. So I took it off, and I'm just using a simple piece of sisal twine, tying a knot in it. I did find that I ended up needing to off-center it so that my wheel would hang the way that I wanted it to hang, but you'll just want to play with that. It's going to depend on how much weight you have on your wheel, but let me know what you think. I love this.
DIY number 3.
For this project, I had these leftover skewer pieces from a mirror project that I had done recently. It was a starburst mirror, and these were just some scraps that I had left over. So I'm cutting a couple of these down to size. I want to make sure that they are the same length, and then I'm going to cut down a bunch of other smaller pieces, again wanting to make sure that those are all the same size. I believe I cut 5 of these for my little rungs. And once I had these all cut, I was going to go ahead and start placing them in between my 2 little uprights. And I'm just checking to make sure that everything is the same length here and trimming things off as necessary. These are my little dog toenail clippers. One of my subscribers had suggested that, and they actually work really well with the skewers and little wooden dowels. So now I am going to go ahead and place my little rungs for the ladder that we are building. I'm going to just do a little mini ladder. And then I'm going to use my Gorilla wood glue again for this project. Now, I was hopeful that it would be tacky enough that it would hold everything together and I wouldn't have to worry about using hot glue. Unfortunately, every time I tried to let go of the little uprights, they would like move or roll away slightly. It wasn't sufficient. So I did end up using a little bit of hot glue to tack the corners there. I did that at the bottom, and then I did it again at the top. So I used my wood glue, and then I came in with some hot glue just to hold it. I did end up removing the hot glue later. Just used my heat gun to heat it up once the wood glue was dry, and then I was able to just peel the hot glue away so you didn't see that little blob of glue, because the wood glue will dry clear. So I just went ahead and added in my other dowels. Once I had the top and bottoms dowels secured, or rungs secured with the hot glue, I didn't need to worry about the middle because my uprights weren't going to be going anywhere. Hopefully that makes sense. But I did go ahead and just add in a little extra glue because my cuts weren't perfect and I wanted to make sure everything was secure. So now I had this pick from Amazon. It's a boxwood pick, but then that little metal circle, that was a part of a Dollar Tree paper towel holder that I had taken apart, and so that was a leftover little ring, and I am using my hot glue, putting a pretty good size little blob on the metal and then attaching my little greenery stems, and I just continue to do that, working my way all the way around, lifting it up where I needed to get down underneath, and just making sure that my little wreath was nice and full. Then I took some Dollar Tree ribbon and I am creating a loop and trying to figure out how I'm going to attach this, because this is going to be going on our little ladder. So I went ahead, cut that off. I was trying to figure out how I wanted to attach this to the ladder. So this is my thinking mode right now, and think. And then I finally went ahead and tied a knot in the top of this, and then I trimmed off that little excess once I had that knot nice and tight. Flipped that over just to make sure that I had a nice clean edge. Used some hot glue on that to seal that in like that. And then I went ahead and I grabbed some more ribbon and created a little bow loop, like a loop bow. So I kind of tucked the ends under. I wanted to make sure that I didn't have any frayed edges sticking out. So this is kind of a weird way of doing it, but hopefully you can tell how I was creating that seam. You could also just lay it flat, glue it together, and then flip it right side out, and then you would have the same kind of seam, if you will. But then I took another little piece of ribbon and I am going to wrap this around the middle of my bow. I'm obviously using hot glue for this as well. Just wrapping that around so that I create a little faux bow, and then I'll trim that off as well. And I'm going to tuck the end in underneath, because again, you know I like to have my clean edges, and just use a little bit of glue on there. Once that was all set, I fluffed up my little loops for my bow because I wanted them to be a little fluffy, not just flat, and I attached that to the little knot that I had created at the top, or at the end, excuse me, of my loop. Once I had that all set, I then grabbed my little ladder. Once it was completely dry, I did let it dry overnight. And then I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to attach this to the ladder. So I undid the little loopy thing, and I ended up tucking it in and attaching it in that regard, just kind of looping it through. And here it is all done. Let me know what you think.
DIY number 4.
I've got the Michaels theme going on. This is another piece that I picked up from Michaels. It was half off. I'm trying to remember. It was either $14.99 or $19.99 original price, but I am using my Waverly Antique Wax and a baby wipe, and I am just kind of smearing it on to my base. Now, every place you see the design, that is actual wood. So this is a wood round with more wood set on top of it. So it's a bunch of wood cutouts that are adhered to the wood surface. So it gave me an opportunity to get in around the letters and the design, the decoration with the wax without applying it to the letters and the decoration themselves. So I went in with a little bit of a tiny paintbrush for the areas that I couldn't get to with the baby wipe. And sometimes people ask me why the baby wipe. It just helps to apply the wax in a way that's not super dark. And you don't have to go back and wipe it off. So you don't have to paint it on and then wipe it off. You can just go ahead and wipe it on, and it's to the desired consistency, darkness, density, intensity. That's the word I'm looking for. So, Holly from Hot Humble Pie would tell you it gives a glide factor, something about the baby wipe. It just helps it to smooth on easily. So it just makes the job that much easier. But I just continued to go in with my paintbrush, and I would come back with my baby wipe to wipe more of it away and get into all of those little nooks and crannies. And I love the way that it was bringing out the grain in the wood. I love this piece so much. I know I keep saying it makes my heart happy, but it just does. Something about the wood, the natural wood, and the the wax, I don't know, it just, I thought it was really pretty. And then once I started getting in with all the colors, all the spring colors were just really making me smile. So I'm going to speed this along in just a moment. I'm not sure why I decided to share all of the intricate little details here with how I was going in between the letters. Maybe I was thinking there was something more I was going to share with you, but I don't recall what that might have been. So just making our way around and being careful as I got into some of the more intricate areas of the design. So just trying not to put my baby wipe up on top of the decoration, so to speak. So I'm coming in, this was the lemon. That might be why I remembered what it was before, but it's the same color that I had used on the egg. And I'm gonna go ahead and paint my hello. Again, this is just for inspiration. You should use whatever colors make you happy. You could do this two-tone. You don't even have to use the antique wax. If you wanted to have your background be a paint color, paint it, you know. You could make it all white. You could make it a ballet slipper pink or something like that. But these were the colors that I chose to use, and I wanted to have it on the wood grain background. So I'm just coming in and I'm trying to be random. I don't know how random I really was, but using different colors in different areas and just coming through. And again, I was using a lot of the same colors that I used on the egg project and just using them here instead. I will say I did not use enamel on this particular project, so I used more of the satins and the matte colors, but I used all acrylic paints for this project. So here we are with the lilac again. I'm not sure what the darker green color was called. I want to say it was evergreen, but I will have to look that up. And this was actually that same purple that I had used on the egg, although in the video it's coming through as blue, but when I was looking at it, it looked like a royal purple color. So, and then just a pale pink, touching this up. I just love these colors. I think they're so pretty and so spring-like, and I am so ready for spring weather. I don't know about you, but it's been kind of all over the place here in New Jersey with warmer days and then colder days, and we've had a lot of rain. So they say April showers bring May flowers, right? So now that we're into April, hopefully we will start seeing the flowers popping up soon. And this is pretty much it. I hope that you enjoyed this project. If you did, give me a big thumbs up. If you haven't already subscribed, I hope you'll consider doing that and visiting with me again sometime soon. But let me know what you think of this project.
DIY number 5.
All right, I have a bunch of these little drawer box things from the Dollar Tree, as well as a whole bunch of letter stickers. I was going ahead and prepping these. I've got my vintage Victorian, my pumpkin, my sunny porch, my celery, pool, and lilac. So hopefully you notice this is kind of like a little bit of a rainbow, and I'm painting each box. Now my pumpkin, I felt like it was a little bit too dark. It was too fallish. I really wanted something that was lighter and more spring-like. My jar was almost empty, so I went ahead and added some white paint to it. I do have an extra jar of pumpkin anyway, so I figured, you know what? I'm gonna make this one more of a peach color. I did add a little bit of water because my paint is getting a little bit on the dry side. It was getting a little clumpy, and added some more white until I got it to the shade that I wanted. That's the great thing about paint. You can mix all kinds of colors. And so I went ahead and continued to paint each of my boxes a different color, and keeping in mind the order that I wanted the boxes in, because some of these boxes are smaller and some of them are larger just because of the way that they are made to nest. So I wanted to make sure that I was all set there. So now I've got my letter stickers, and you'll notice I've already used a bunch of these. I am looking for the ones that are already used, and I'm cutting these out because I'm going to use these as stencils. Okay, so once I had them all cut out, I peeled away the sticker from the backing, and then I went ahead and applied it to my box where I wanted that letter placed. And then once I had all of those done, I have my little makeup sponge. I have a teeny piece of it, and I am doing a very dry um, stencil padding, if you will. I was going in very light with the paint because I didn't want to have bleeding. I did not seal these first. And with these particular sticker sheets, if you will, they are paper. So I have learned from experience that you do not want to saturate these with paint, because when you do, the paper starts to pull away from the adhesive and it's very difficult to get them off. So highly recommend, if you use this method, to use a dry tapping method so that you're putting down, depositing just a very little bit of paint so it's practically dry as you're doing it, and then just go in with multiple coats of the dry paint technique until it's the color or the depth or the shade that you want it. And here they are. I think they look so crisp and neat. I am so happy. And I've got a bunch of my Dollar Tree picks, and I've got my remnants of my floral foam, and I'm gonna go ahead and cut that down to fit inside my little boxes. I just cut a whole bunch of it so that I could get it in there properly, and then I'm using hot glue to adhere it to the bottom. These are actually picks from Amazon. I do have this in my Amazon store and have a link in my description box for that. So if you have interest in the boxwood that I'm using here, I went ahead and I cut it all down, and then I started cutting down my Dollar Tree picks as well. And I wasn't sure yet if I wanted to make every box the same with the arrangements, or if I was going to alternate and do different things. So here I am just cutting the little pieces of grass and tucking those in the middle. So I have the boxwood around the edges and then the grass in the middle. And here I am, I'm just doing the larger boxes first. I had alternated them with the smaller ones. And I was trying to decide, again, whether I was going to be consistent across the board or if I was going to vary, every other box, what I was going to do. I had 4 different colors of those egg picks, and each of them had 3 eggs. So I knew I had a total of 12 of the eggs. So if I was going to be consistent, each box was going to be able to get 2. So I was trying to just decide. And I'm visual, right? So I have to start doing it to see. And as I went, I decided, you know what, I am going to go ahead and make these all consistent. Obviously, I did the grass first on those second 3, and then I did go ahead and add in the boxwood here as well. So once I had all of the boxwood in there and all of the grass in there, I went ahead and started adding in my little eggs. I think these are so cute. I love them. They've got a little bit of a shimmer to them, and you can see all of the little, I don't even know what you would call that. They've got these little things that stick up off of the egg. They're like textured, and you can see them glimmering a little bit in the light there. But I went ahead and very strategically, randomly placed the colors in. I just wanted to make sure that the colors were opposite of the box that they were in, and that I didn't have the same color, right next to it. I'm a little crazy with that. But then I went ahead and cut down these little berry picks that I'd also gotten at the Dollar Tree. I have them in orange, and then I have them in this deep marine blue shade. And I went ahead and I tucked them in down around the edge of the box. And this also helped to camouflage the floral foam that's in there. And then I've got the blue, so I just alternated orange and blue every other letter. And that was essentially how I created this arrangement. I think they are so cute. Let me know what you think.
DIY number 6.
All right, so I am using Canva for this project. I don't know if you're familiar with Canva, but it is actually a free graphic design software that's out online. Anybody can use it. I actually do have the pro version, but you can do most of what they offer you can do with the free version. So if you have interest in some sort of a tutorial on Canva, let me know in the comments and I will be happy to add it to my list of videos to create. But I'm in here looking for a photo. I had narrowed my search down to spring floral or flower stems, and I found these crocuses. I thought they were perfect for what I wanted to do for this spring image. And now I'm going to add some text. I'm going to just pull one of the pre-designed text font sets, if you will, and I am just adjusting it and making it my own. I had duplicated it so that I could pull the smaller font down. I probably could have just separated it out. I don't know. That was just the way that I did it. But I am replacing the text with crocus up at the top. And then I'm going to go into effects and I'm going to have it curved. I'll be able to adjust it to the size that I want it and just get it looking the way that I'd like it to look. And then there we go. Getting it bigger. And then I'm going to go ahead and I am going to make sure that it's nice and centered, and I'll work on the frame next for the crocuses. I went into shapes and grabbed a square. When I pulled the square in, it was this pretty green color, which was perfect for what I wanted, and I'm just lining it up and getting it where it needs to be. And then I'm going to go ahead and duplicate that, make it a little bit smaller, and I'm going to color that one white because I'm creating just that border that I want around my flowers. I am adjusting the order, if you will. So I brought the flowers to the front, and now we've got that frame. So I had tried coloring crocus purple. It wasn't the right shade, so now I'm using the eyedropper that Canva offers to get the exact purple color that's in my flowers. I'm just adjusting the text at the bottom. We're going to call it Spring Valley Flower Farm when I'm done with it. And so the great thing about this, you can create literally anything you can imagine and make it your own. And this really didn't take a whole lot of time, and I love the result. This was just printed out on my color printer. This is a picture that my sister gave me. This is my sister and my cousin from a long time ago, but she didn't need it any longer. I'm going to go ahead and pull out the picture. I'm going to be repurposing the frame for this project. It had these like little doodads supporting the frame. I don't know what you even call these. They're like staples almost that stick out, and so I had to bend them all up to get the backing out and then get the picture out. So I was successful with that, and it looks like the mat is going to be the perfect size for our crocus image. I'm just carefully taking off the original photo, and then I'm going to take a look at it and see what that's going to look like. Now, I'm not crazy about the color of the mat, so I'm kind of thinking about what I'm going to do with that. I'm wishing that I had it in a different color. It's just this, you know, cream color, almost a beige. Just wasn't going well with the bright white. But I was then trying to get the glass out of the frame, and I was having a time with it. So ultimately, I didn't want to break the glass. I did try, but I figured, you know what, I'm just going to leave it. I'm going to tuck some paper in there to protect the glass. Although when you paint on glass, you can just use your putty knife to scrape it right off again, but I didn't want to have to deal with the mess. So I just protected my glass, and then I'm going to come in with a chip brush and doing a really rough coat of paint on the frame. So all over the frame, but really it's just one coat, and it is not full coverage at all. And that was the way that I wanted it, because we're going to distress this. Now, I don't know if it's because of the high gloss on the frame itself, but it was really easy to just use my putty knife and scrape away the paint in the areas where I wanted it a little bit more distressed. And I kind of like banged on it a little bit with, you can see me like jabbing it with my putty knife, just giving it some, texture in some areas and distressing it. Once I had it the way I wanted it, I just grabbed my rubbing alcohol and I'm cleaning off the glass and just making sure that it's going to be nice and ready for my picture. Now it's time to figure out what to do with this mat. And I was thinking, you know what if it were like a light green? I have no idea when I start this if you can paint a canvas without ruining it. Not a canvas, this is a mat. I didn't know if I could paint the mat without ruining it, but I grabbed that lighter celery that I had mixed with the white and I went ahead and painted it, you guys. So I gave it 2 coats of paint, and you know what? It did just fine. It was perfect, actually. Once it was all dry, I promise you couldn't even really tell that it had been painted. It looked like it was originally that color. So 2 coats of paint, I let it dry completely. I might have used my heat gun on it. And so much better. That makes my heart happy. Now we're ready to go ahead and put it together. So I flipped it over, taped it to the back of the mat to make sure that it wasn't going to move around or drop down inside the frame. And once I had that nice and secured, we were ready to go ahead and pop it back into the frame. So got it all situated. I dropped it back into the frame, and then I went ahead and pushed down all those little doodads again. And there it is. Let me know what you think.
DIY number 7.
All right, these are little coffee cups from the Dollar Tree. They came in a pack of 4. And when I saw these, they looked like little mini pitchers to me. So I thought, well, maybe I could try to figure out a way to mold the plastic. This is not the way to do it. This is a soldering iron, and it wanted to just cut right through the plastic and not just melt it and make it malleable. So I went to plan B and I cut a little V out of the top of my little pitcher. And once I had that V all cut, this works actually quite well. You just want to make sure you're real careful if you do this. But I got that little triangle cut out. And then I grabbed some of my parchment paper and cut out a little piece. It was a folded over piece, right? So now I'm opening it up and I'm trying to figure out how to get the shape for my little pitcher spout. So I went ahead and cut that down and got it to the shape that I wanted it. Once that was done, I used that as a pattern. So I grabbed some cardstock out of my stash. The cardstock was in a pack from Dollar Tree. Bunch of little scraps of cardstock, traced my pattern on there. I went ahead and cut that out. You can see I had put a little notch at the bottom there to help it bend and take the shape that I wanted it to. So then I formed it back inside my little pitcher base, if you will, and then I used some Scotch tape to just hold it down in place so that I could find a way to secure it permanently. So you can see it's starting to come together. Once I had that ready, I'm using my hot glue. I went over the seams first, and then I decided I was actually going to cover the entire outer spout to just give it the same. I didn't want it to look like there were a whole bunch of seams on it, right? So I wanted it to have a smoother appearance. So once I had the seams done, I did go back in and I just filled in that entire surface of the spout, and it just kind of made it a little bit more cohesive. I did use a little bit of parchment paper to help smooth it in a couple of places. The one thing I like about, or one of the things that I like about the parchment paper is that the hot glue doesn't stick to it. So that was handy. So once I had that formed the way I wanted it, I let it cool for a few, and then I painted it with my Pool chalk paint by Waverly. I gave it a good coat on outside and inside, and then for my second coat, I just came in and I was tapping the paint all over the outer surface. So let it dry overnight, and here's my little picture. I've got some glass beads, I've got my floral foam, I've got some flowers, those are from Walmart, and I have my butterflies from Michael's that I've had in my stash for a while. I'm just cutting down my floral foam. I honestly, in hindsight, was wishing that I had only used that one little piece in the bottom. It wasn't necessary for me to stack this. It would have, I would have preferred to have my flowers sit a little bit lower. I made it work. I made it work. I made it work, but it would have been easier had I not added that extra piece of foam. But now I'm tucking these glass beads down in, and I'm pushing them down as far as I can because I want them to help keep the picture from being tippy, right? So I want those beads as far down in the base as I can get them. So now I'm taking my little picks apart. If you've followed me for any amount of time, you know that this is my MO. I cut everything apart and then I put it back together again the way that I want it. So I started around the outer edge with these little flowers. I don't know, is this considered baby's breath? What would you consider this to be? I don't even really know, but it's very delicate, little white flowers and kind of bushy. So just creating my little arrangement here with all of this, and worked from the outer edges in towards the middle. Once I had that all set, I came in with my little butterflies. These are great because they have little wires in them so that they can be shaped a little bit. And I just went ahead and I applied 3 of those to my little butterfly bush. But I think this is adorable. Let me know what you think.
DIY number 8.
I have some dowels from the Dollar Tree, as well as these wood pallets, I'm going to call them, from Plaid. I think they're awesome. They came in a pack of 3. We're going to be using 2 of them. I also have this little wooden tray from Michael's, and these finials from Bed Bath & Beyond. They were on clearance for $5.99 and then 70% off that. So it was like $1.50 for those 2 finials. I've had these in my stash for a while. Really excited to finally be using them, but I am applying some wood glue to my dowels. I started to put it in the corners of the palette there, for lack of a better term, and then decided to apply them oh my goodness, to apply it directly to the dowels. I was a little tongue-tied there for a minute, but went ahead and got those situated, and while they were drying, I applied a little bit of hot glue just to make sure that they weren't going to go anywhere, because you could see that I was having a little trouble bumping them and knocking them over, so I wanted to make sure that they weren't going to go anywhere. So then I flipped that over and I prepped the other wood palette. What would you call that? I don't even know what that's really called. Is it a wood canvas? I don't know. But at any rate, you saw that I applied some more wood glue and set my dowels down in there as well. So now I'm going to take the Michael's little wood box here, and I created a template for the bottom of it, and I'm folding it in half and then in quarters, and then I'm going to fold it in like a triangle shape on the diagonal. I'm just trying to find the center of my square. So I'm going to put my little pattern down there. I've got my center. I'm going to take a nail and I'm going to knock that in through the pattern so I know exactly where my center is, drilling a hole there because I'm going to apply my finial. So I'm just going to screw this right in. I did look to see if maybe I could just take that screw out, and it looked like there wasn't really a good way to do it. So I figured, you know what, I'll work with it. I'm going to apply some more wood glue on the underside of it just to make sure that it's nice and secure. I suppose I could have used these bolt that came with it, but that didn't occur to me until just right this moment. So I used glue and that worked just fine. But I went ahead and then applied it to the top of my lantern. Everything was dry at this point, and except for some of that glue on the underside of this one, as you can see, but I'm just applying a little teeny tiny bit of glue along here because I don't want it to ooze out on me. So applying this to the top, and then I'm going to spray paint everything with this heirloom white, and I am already loving this. I also grabbed one of these candle holders from the Dollar Tree. I spray painted that the same color. It was originally black. Put a bunch of hot glue under there to secure it, and now I have these flowers that I'd gotten in a grab box from Michael's, and that Amazon ribbon, I'm going to call it, leaf ribbon. It's like a ribbon, but it's in the shape of leaves, and I think it's so pretty. But I'm going to pull apart all my picks, I'm going to cut all the ends off, and I'm going to arrange these around the base of my lantern. Now, while I am doing that, I'm going to tell you why I was so inspired for these projects. I was asked to create some centerpieces or tablescapes for the Lambertville Area Education Foundation. For those of you who've been following me for a while, you know I live in Lambertville, New Jersey, and the Area Education Foundation, which is a nonprofit organization that helps support our local school system, they asked me to create something for a fundraising event that they're going to be having. It's their biggest event, I believe, of the year. It's something that they do annually, and they have a live auction and they have a silent auction, and they asked me to create this. So I decided I was going to create 4 different tablescapes or centerpieces, and I would love for you to vote and tell me which one of these I should donate to the Lambertville Area Education Foundation, or we refer to it as the LAEF. So it's a little bit easier to say. So as you watch, please keep in mind that one of these will get donated, and I would really love your thoughts on which one it should be. And the one with the most votes is going to get donated. So please, please let me know your thoughts on that. But I am loving this. Once I had all those flowers set around the base, I'm coming in with the ribbon. I'm going to call it ribbon because it's like a fabric. It's like a ribbon. It is not wired. It is just flat, I guess you would call it. But at any rate, I wrapped it around my little post, and I'm sorry it's hard to see from this angle. I need to work with my camera angles again. But I used a little bit of hot glue at the top underneath the little top to secure it, and then I wrapped it, and then I secured it at the bottom. Let me know what you think.
DIY number 9.
All right, I went into my stash and pulled out all of my little wooden beads. I've gotten all of these from Amazon at one time or another, and I'm pulling out different sizes. I believe I think it was 7 different sizes, but I used 8 beads times 3. So I'm pulling out 3s. And I was debating as to whether 2 of them were the same size or not, but you can see I'm kind of stacking them here in size order and just lining them up and making sure that I've got what I need. But it was ultimately 8 for each of these, and then I'm painting them all orange. This was originally pumpkin chalk paint, but I had added some white Adirondack to it in a recent video because I wanted a lighter color of orange. So this is actually a mixture, custom blend paint. And I'm just using the end of one of my little skewers to help me here. I've tried a bunch of different methods with painting beads, and I just found that this was going to be easiest for me today. So once those were all completely dry, I grabbed out some scrap twine that I had in my stash, and I threaded it onto a needle, and I'm just going to go ahead and thread all of those little beads onto my twine. Now, the first time that I did this, I'm making 3 of these. The first time I did it, I had doubled up the twine thinking that that was the way I needed to have it for this, forgetting that I didn't want to cut the loop at the top. I wanted that to remain a solid loop. So here I got to that part and I'm like, well, that was silly, Corie. So now I have to take it back through, and it was a little bit challenging because I had a my twine was doubled up, and so it was thicker trying to go back through those holes, because then all of a sudden it was 4 pieces of twine trying to go through those holes. I managed, and I'll show you in a minute what I did for the second and third one to make my life a little bit easier. But you can see I've got the loop at the top, and then I have the little trailing, I'll call them, oh my goodness, what are those things? Roots. Little roots. You know how sometimes carrots have little roots coming off the end? I do trim those up a little bit, but for now I'm taking these little grass pieces, I'm trimming them down, and I'm going to use some of these for my little carrot top. And please forgive me because I keep yawning while I'm doing this. It's late at night. I was running a little bit behind this week with doing my video, and so it is way past my bedtime tonight, and my body is yelling at me. So sorry about that if I sound like I'm suppressing yawns. But I went ahead and tucked the grass through the loop, folded it in half, and then I'll pull the little, and that's probably why I lose my words too, because my brain is like shut off. The little roots, those, yes, I pulled those down. See, I'm trimming them off. I had tied a knot in the very bottom of the base of my little carrot, just so that everything was nice and secure. And now I've looped over a whole bunch of pieces of twine, and I'm going to tie that around the top of my carrot at the base of the greenery. So once I had that tied around, I went ahead and created a little bow. So we've just got that sweet little thing. And then I did go ahead and tie an extra knot at the base. I just wanted to make sure that my knot was large enough that it wasn't going to slip up through. And I also want to make sure everything was nice and tight. So now for the second and third carrots, I strung these on the same way, but you can see I'm only using a single layer of twine this time, and that worked out much better. So once I had my little carrot beads on there, I went ahead and strung it back through, and I was just taking care to make sure that I had that loop, and I almost lost it there for a second, but I wanted to make sure I kept that loop at the top. So I did go ahead and tuck my greenery through there, and that was just going to help me prevent it from slipping back out. If I tugged a little bit too much on the twine, I didn't want it to come out of that top bead. So you can see that that's in there, and then I just went back through each of the, what are those? Beads to get down to the bottom. Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry, you guys. I really have got to go to bed soon here. But I got these all on here, and then I went ahead and did the same things that I did on the first one. So I tied a knot in the bottom, made sure that that was nice and secure, and then I also tied a bow with multiple strands of twine up at the top. Now I left my little loops loopy. I did not cut the little loops open on my bows, but you could certainly cut your loops if you choose. So I've got 2 little carrots with roots, 1 without, but let me know what you think.
DIY number 10.
I have these wreath rings that I picked up from Walmart. I also have this wooden tray and some tumbling tower blocks. That wooden tray had come in a pack of 5 off of Amazon. If you recall, I made a tiered tray with 3 of them. I think it was 5 for $25, something like that. But they are available in my Amazon store if that's of interest to you. And the link for that is in my description box. I wired together the 3 rings, and I'm using a little bit of my Star Bond super glue along with the accelerator. Once you spray that stuff on, it it cures the glue instantly. It's amazing. I've never seen anything like it. But I went ahead and did that on both sides. I wanted to make sure that this was going to be really super stable. If you've been following me for a while, you might recall a project that I did over the holidays that was similar to this. This is going to be a spring version, and I have learned from experience, and I am going to make sure that this one is a little bit more secure, because the one that I made at Christmas time, I felt like it was a little bit I don't want to say flimsy, but it was a little wobbly on the top. So as you can see, I'm using my tumbling tower blocks to secure both sides of the wreath rings. And I'm going to fill in that gap with hot glue. So that'll help with the immediate bond. Obviously, I was using wood glue. That's going to be the long-term hold. I had tried to use those clamps that you might have seen in the picture before to hold everything together, but because of the angle, it was causing more issues than it was helping. So I ended up using the hot glue instead to just get things secured. And then I'm using extra wood glue along the base here just to kind of fill in any gaps. You can see me filling in between the wood tumbling tower blocks. And once it was all dry, it was nice and secure. So I have 3 little sets of fairy lights. I'd gotten these off of Amazon as well in a pack. I think it was a dozen in the pack that I got. These are also in my Amazon store. And I am just going to wrap and wrap and wrap them around all 3 rings. So as I wrapped, I kind of scooshed it down a little bit so that my lights weren't spread too far apart. And I was just doing it, you know, by eye. I did not measure anything. So you can make these as close together or as far apart as you wish. But I used one of these strands for each of the 3 rings. And there it is, all set there. Now I have a bunch of flowers from my stash. These are from the Hobby Lobby, and I've had these for quite some time. But I'm going to kind of form it up around the ring. And I'm just getting those little light battery packs out of the way, but trying to figure out how I want the flowers to sit here. And then I'm going to trim off that long stem, and I will use some hot glue to secure it. So here I am with my wire cutters, trimming that off. I realized afterwards that I had cut off the greenery that I wanted, so I do end up using that greenery later, but then used a good amount of hot glue to secure that down. You can see that the greenery I kind of glued right back down on there. So I did the same exact thing with the other side. I just used a complementary color with the flowers. And again, just a lot of hot glue, making sure that this isn't going to be going anywhere. And now you can see I have lamb's ear that I'm getting ready to place down. This is from Amazon. I got this recently in an Amazon haul, and I used 2 bundles on either side and just kind of fanning them out from the middle. Again, lots of hot glue usage here. Now I have, these are from the Dollar Tree actually, these little yellow hydrangeas, and I've pulled them apart as I do with most of my picks, and I am tucking them in. I am not gluing them down just yet. I am arranging them in between the leaves of the lamb's ear, trying to see how I want them. And once I have them where I want them, I'm going to come back in with some hot glue and just make sure that all of those little stems are secure. So here I am with the hot glue, and I will just make sure that I hit the base of each of those little stems of the hydrangeas so that they don't go anywhere, and they're all set. Now I have some ribbon. I believe I picked this up at the Hobby Lobby a while ago. I am sure that I got it after the Christmas holidays on clearance. It is a Christmas ribbon, but I thought that this could also work for spring just because it's such a pretty green color, and with that gold running through it, I just thought it was really pretty and that it would look nice with this. So I measured off enough to create a large loop, and I'm going to be again, mirroring this on both sides. So I also cut a second length of the same length. I'm having trouble with my words tonight, you guys, as I record this, so bear with me. But I've got my loops that I'm creating here. And then I wanted to create a smaller loop that was going to sit in the middle of each. And I did the same thing again. I need two of them, so I'm measuring it off. As you can see, I am not actually measuring with a ruler or anything here. I'm just eyeballing it. But I used a little bit of hot glue in the center, just a dab of it to secure my loop. You can see just a little dab because I want to be able to squish the center of this together in a minute. So I don't want too much glue interfering with the ability to smoosh the ribbon, if you know what I mean. So I went ahead and secured my big loops, and this is just going to make it easier for me to work with this when I take another length of ribbon to bring it all together. So I am layering my loops. I'm taking an extra length of ribbon that I had cut off, tucking it through the middle of that little loop and around the bigger loop, and I'm going to just tie it off in the back and just kind of play with it as you go. When you first pull this tight, it's going to get a little wonky and you just have to work with it. Pull it tight a little bit slowly, so a little bit at a time, and just work with your ribbon so that it doesn't get all kind of jammed up underneath your knot. So once I had it the way I wanted it, I went ahead and finished the knot. I pulled the little tails forward. I'm making sure that my bow is the way that I want it, getting that all fluffed up, and then I'll just go ahead and make sure that it looks the way that I want it to in the center of my piece here. I have not glued it down yet. I created my other little bow, and I'm just making sure that everything is going to get nice and covered, and then I came in with my hot glue. I'm very visual, so I like to see things in place before I commit because that way I can change things if I decide that I don't like them the way they are. So that's why a lot of times you will see me looking at things and then making adjustments and then committing with the glue. So once I had them glued down, you saw I dovetailed the ends on the other side. So I'll go ahead and dovetail the ends on this side as well and just kind of tuck them in and make it pretty. And then this one is going to be all done. And let me know what you think of this one.
DIY number 11.
All right, this is from my stash. My sister gave this to me. This is a trash to treasure project. She was getting rid of it. I love the texture on this vase. I think it is so cool. So many things you could do with it. This is gonna be a quick and simple project. Anybody can do this. I've got my parchment paper down to protect my surface. I'm gonna give this a really good heavy coat of my chalk paint. This again is that celery that I diluted with white. Is diluted the right word? You know what I mean. But I lightened it with white. So I've got this really pretty light celery color. Went ahead and coated everything but the bottom. I did coat the inside of that little lip just to where the neck is. And once it was dry, I took my sanding block and I just went to town on it. So just scraping off the paint on the parts that are bumped up to just show off that texture. I think this is so cool. I absolutely love it. And you can distress this as much or as little as you want. Once I had it the way that I wanted it, I went ahead and grabbed these tulips that I had in my stash. I'd gotten these at Amazon for a Valentine's Day project, and I ended up not needing all of them. And I think they are perfect for spring. I just shoved some rags in there because I felt like they weren't sitting up high enough. So I stuck something down inside the bottom to help prop them up. And now I have my Kirkland ribbon that I love to use all the time. I am pulling off a length of that that's going to be appropriate for my bow. And then I'm just going to tie around the neck, just a regular old tie your shoelaces bow. This is such a simple but elegant, rustic, whatever word you want to use, project, and I love it. Let me know what you think.
DIY number 12.
All right, I pulled this apart from a tray that I had created at one point, and so I think it's a cupcake holder from the Dollar Tree. I also had a Dollar Tree candle holder that I set aside, and these are two hanging plant baskets from the Dollar Tree. Now you can see I'm cutting out the circle on this one with my wire cutters, and I'm going to try to straighten out these wires as much as I possibly can. And I think I may have seen Wendy from White Sparrow Living do something along these lines a long time ago. I'm pretty sure it was Wendy. So thank you, Wendy, for the idea. But I'm just going to be creating a little cage with this. So I am turning over the ends of the wire with my needle nose pliers. Now, knowing what I know now, I probably could have used a better tool, and actually Rich is going to step in just a minute and help me out with a better tool for this. But I'm basically trying to connect these, and I've got to bend that wire around the other basket. You can see me trying to do it unsuccessfully there. And here is Rich to the rescue, and he's got his heavy duty pliers where he's just coming in and crimping all of those little hooks onto the other basket for me. So I'm sorry we're a little off frame here, but hopefully you get the idea of what we were trying to do. So once we had it all put together, thank you, Rich, I love you, I went ahead and started piecing the rest of it together. A lot of hot glue on the candle holder here, and then I did use some E6000 for that long-term bond. I'm going to flip that over into the middle of the cake tray, and I'm using this cake tray upside down, you'll see, but that's the way that I wanted it for this project. Went ahead and cleaned that up and flipped it over. And you can see my little cage is going to sit right on top of there. I super glued that, but I'm going to paint the whole thing with my black spray paint. Here it is. You can see that the surface isn't real great because of what I had done with this thing previously, but it's okay because it's going to be completely covered up. So I've got my greenery. This I had picked up from Walmart a while back. I went ahead and I decided I was going to start with this instead. Now, this is leftover pieces of a little broom, a twig broom that I had, and I am just cutting it all up. And it's formed the way that it is because I had bent it and stuck it in my little drawer for a while, and it just kind of stayed in that shape. So I am going to, once I've got this all cut down, build a little nest. So I'm just kind of taking a few pieces at a time and trying to randomly layer them over each other on the ends. I don't know if I'm making any sense at all, but I'm hopefully, based on what you can see me doing, you get what I'm trying to say. But just building a little bird nest in the middle here. And as it started to come together, it was just making my heart happy again. So lots of hot glue in the middle here, and this was to give it a little bit, what's the word I'm looking for? I want it to not fall apart, and I also want it to stay in the middle of the tray. So once it was all nice and cool, I was able to put my bird on, dropped my little cage down over, and I did use a little bit of hot glue at the points where the cage met the base. And that was just in 3 little points where the hooks normally fall in line for the little plant holder. So once I had that secure, I went ahead and grabbed my greenery, and now I'm going to tuck it in through the cage and into the little nest. I'm just going to tuck it in and around for the whole circumference around the little bird, and just dropping in my greenery and getting it all situated. My bird is not glued down. I didn't want to glue him down. He is super sweet. I have had him for quite some time. I had gotten him from the Hobby Lobby and I just love him. So then I came in with some other little picks. These are from the Hobby Lobby as well, and they are little beads with golden flowers, some more flowers from the Hobby Lobby. Again, all of these things I've had in my stash for years at this point, so I'm really happy to finally have a project to use them in. So lots of little purple flowers, and then I'm going to come back in with some yellow flowers as well in just a moment. I guess there is a little bit of yellow with the purple as well. It's not just all purple. But look at how sweet this is coming out. Our little bird is kind of tucked in amongst all of the flowers and the greenery. Happy little bird. So once I got all of these situated, we were all done. Let me know what you think.
DIY number 13.
All right, for this project, I have a little, what is this? A little crate from the Dollar Tree. I sanded it off, getting the rough edges off. And now I've got my sunny porch by Home Decor chalk paint. I painted the top of it, and then that first little rung. So wanted to make sure that that was all nice and just on that rung, because you probably figured out we're going to make a little book stack with this. What I did this time, I went ahead and used a fine brush and I created the illusion of the book on the other sides as well. So we've got the spine, and then we've got, you know, the cover that would come down along the edges, right? So that's what I did with this. And once I had the yellow applied for that next layer, I was going to do my vintage Victorian. It's this light pink color. I did the same thing with that and created my little book, the cover for my books, my hardcover, and then I used lilac for the third one. And I did the same thing with the lilac on the edges and made the illusion that it was an actual book with the cover. And these are just stacked up here. So I did that on all sides. And then once I had that done, I actually had made a mistake with my yellow. So to fix that, I could have left the pages, so to speak, that natural wood tone, but because I needed to fix my yellow oops, I decided to come in with oatmeal, and this is a home decor paint as well, so just making my pages this oatmeal color. Once I had that all done, I allowed it to dry, and then I came in with a green marker. A friend of mine gave this to me several years ago. I have no idea where it was purchased, but it's really a great marker. I've used other ones like it. I have a blue one that I used recently on one of my giant eggs, but I am just taking my time and hand lettering these little words onto my book spines and using different fonts just for each one. So I'm taking my time. Remember that this is sped up by about almost 3 times. So I have, this is not my handwriting. This is hand lettering. So it's more like drawing letters, if that helps to put it into perspective. But I've got Mother Nature Laughs. And it's going to say in flowers. Mother Nature laughs in flowers, and I'm doing it backwards, you'll notice, because I want everything to be right justified. So I started at the right and worked my way towards the left. And for my O, I'm actually drawing a little flower here. So I've got my sunny porch, just using a fine paintbrush, and then I got an even smaller little paintbrush, and I'm dabbing the center with my vintage Victorian, that light pink color again. And then I realized afterwards that I forgot the in, so I went ahead and added in. And then once that was all dry, I grabbed out some ribbon that I had in my stash, and I thought this would be fun because it's a double-sided ribbon, clearly. And I'm putting the green on the outside for the wrap, if you will. And one reason I wanted to wrap it this way is because I really did want it to have that illusion of being a stack of books, and I couldn't have that with the holes on the sides. So this ribbon served the purpose of not only making it look cute, but it's covering up those holes so you can't see them anymore. And so once I had that tied off and trimmed, I went ahead and grabbed the ribbon again, created a loop, and cut that off. And then I cut another length and I tied it around the middle. I'm cutting the length. I'm going to tie it around the middle to create my little bow. And once I have that all knotted, I'm just knotting it. And it's okay if it goes a little wonky on you when you first pull that tight. That is normal. You can just pause for a moment, straighten it out, and get it the way you want it. For the second knot, I went ahead and flipped it underneath. And then, so once I had it started, I flipped the one tie back underneath. So now when I pull it tight, my knot is underneath. Hopefully that makes sense. I do have a bow tutorial video where I go into more detail on how I do that so that the knot is hidden, and I will leave that in the description box in case that's of interest to you. Then I went ahead and trimmed off the little ends. I just got them dovetailed so they were nice and neat. And I thought this was so sweet. But I'm not done yet. So I grabbed a couple more of those little flowers, the paper flowers, and I figured I would add those on here. I could have added some flowers to the top also. I honestly didn't think about it until just now, but you totally could add some flowers underneath that bow on the top as well. I just thought it would be fun to use these paper flowers again. Let me know what you think.
DIY number 14.
For this project, I have tumbling tower blocks from the Dollar Tree, this little Dollar Tree bird feeder that I am pulling the little ticket off of, sticker, whatever, tag, and I have my celery chalk paint by Waverly. I had used a little piece of sandpaper to get that cleaned up on the edges a little bit, and now I'm going to use my Gorilla wood glue to put 6 of my little tumbling tower blocks together. I just fashioned them into a little riser that I'm going to be using a little later on my birdhouse. So I am going to give everything but the roof and that little perch a coat of the celery chalk paint. I'm leaving a little space at the bottom there for my wood glue to adhere. So then I'm going to paint my little perch white, and I'll leave that one end completely blank because, again, I'm going to be applying glue to the surface, and you want that to be wood to wood really for the best bond. But then I painted the rest of it white. And now I'm coming in with the roof. I am doing that white as well and getting that all touched up. And I'll do the little perch in white as well. So just taking my time and being careful not to hit my green with white. And then I'll go ahead and adhere my perch. I'm using a pretty good amount of the wood glue so you can see why I left that little place unpainted on the bottom of the birdhouse. And now I have this little Dollar Tree birdie. I thought it was so cute, and I wanted to put it on the perch at first, but then I wasn't liking the way that it looked. So I went ahead and attached the bird to the little bottom ledge of the house. And now I have these paper flowers from Michael's. I had picked these up quite some time ago. They've been in my stash. I've used them for other things, but I thought that they were so pretty, and I thought it just would give this a little bit of something extra. I had been looking for some miniature flowers in my stash that I could use on little picks, things of that nature, but I didn't really have anything that was going to be small enough and the style that I was looking for. So these actually came in super handy because I thought that they were so sweet, as if they were just kind of growing up the side of the little birdhouse. I went ahead and attached a couple more to the little roof line, and you could do as few or as many of these as you want. I mean, this is where your imagination can take you wherever you'd like to go. You could use pipberries, you could use greenery, but this is my little birdhouse. Let me know what you think.
DIY number 15.
All right, this is another sign I got in a Michael's grab box, and then I also have some butterflies from the Dollar Tree and my vintage Victorian, my lilac, my sunny porch, and my pool paint, as well as that was a scrap piece of foam core board. But I am going to paint my butterflies with the vintage Victorian, the lilac, and the pool. I do not need to worry about getting the backs of these because we are going to be adhering these butterflies, and they'll actually stick better if they don't have paint on the back of them. So I'm just doing the front and making sure that everything has 2 good coats so that they are nice and solid with the colors. And now I'm going to take this sign. Now there's a metal sign in there. I've decided, while I could take it out, it wasn't going to be necessary. I decided I'm just going to cover it up instead. So my foam core board had a banged up little edge on it, so I went ahead and cut that off. Now I've tucked it in there to mark where the inner edge is, and now I'm cutting it down. So this is how I measured it. I didn't use a measuring tape. I actually was using the board itself to nick it with my little X-Acto knife to determine where exactly it needed to be cut. And then I'm using my self-healing cutting mat to make sure that I am getting the straight edges with my little metal ruler there. So once I had that all cut down, I made sure that it was going to pop in there. I wanted to be careful not to tuck it in yet because I wasn't going to be able to get it out if I did. So then I went ahead and I painted it with my sunny porch. As soon as I started putting this paint down, I thought, you know what, this is a little too dark. I went ahead and finished painting that color all the way because I wanted it to be consistent, but then I mixed up some white with the yellow just to get a lighter color. I was looking for just a light lemony color shade, so I mixed up that paint, and then I went ahead and I gave it another coat so that I had that lighter color. And you can see it's significantly lighter now with just that pale yellow. I did paint the back as well because it was curling up on me, and one of my awesome subscribers told me that if you paint the other side, it'll get it to lay flat. So that's what I did. And now this is my Gorilla wood glue that I am using in here to help adhere it to the inside of the frame. And I just ran a bead right along the edge of the wood, and I used some hot glue for that immediate hold. I went ahead and set that in there, and then I did weight it down with some vases just until that was dry. So now I have my butterflies. I'm going to get them all lined up. And as I was looking at this, I thought, you know what? I think the frame needs a little something more. So I went ahead and took the butterflies out. I took my parchment paper. It has a natural crease in it, so I just made sure that it was all laying flat. And then I took a chip brush, and I'm just using a dry brush method all over the frame, and that parchment paper is obviously just protecting my yellow paint on the front. So I didn't want to bother with the taping, and this worked just fine for the purpose that I needed, because I'm not going, you know, crazy with the paint, and so this was just perfect. So once I had that all done, I got all of the sides and the edges, and I had it the way I wanted it. I was able to go ahead and take off the parchment paper, set up my butterflies, and I'm just using some generous amounts of hot glue on the back of those to get them laid out and adhered to my sign. And I just think that this is so sweet. It would look beautiful in a little girl's room, but it screams spring to me. And I hope that you like it as much as I enjoyed creating it. Leave me a comment and let me know what you think of this one as well. Okay, everybody, that's it for today. I hope that you enjoyed the projects. If you did, please be sure to give me a big thumbs up and leave me a comment, because it really does help my video to get noticed and it helps my channel to grow. Until the next time, be well, be kind, and make it a great day. Thank you so much for watching. Take good care. Bye.